This is actually the start of the lawsuit. We filed it today, but we had already reached a settlement with EDD on the basis of the claims alleged in the complaint. So we alerted EDD to the due process issues, the constitutional violations, as well as the violations of federal regulations, starting in February of 2021. We sent a formal letter in April documenting those legal violations and have been engaged in discussions with the department and their counsel at the Attorney General's office that led to this settlement agreement.
And who will be getting paid based on this agreement?
Claimants who are currently in pending status, but who have received at least one payment on their claim already, so they're considered continued eligibility claimants, will begin to receive conditional payments while EDD continues to investigate their eligibility issues.
And how quickly will EDD be paying people? And what does it mean by continued conditional or continued pending claims?
Yeah, so conditional payments is the new program that's being rolled out. So what EDD is doing is that instead of waiting to pay benefits while they look into a continued eligibility issue, they will actually be paying the claimants while they investigate these issues. And because of the backlog in eligibility determinations at EDD right now, this means that many claimants have more than 10 weeks of pending weeks that they'll be paid for once this program is fully rolled out. Because of the volume of claimants impacted, EDD is rolling it out in batches, but we anticipate the first payments beginning to arrive as soon as tomorrow.
Wow. And will that go to their Bank of America account? Will that be a check in the mail?
It will be paid as any other benefits that they receive are paid. So some claimants receive it on a Bank of America card, some receive it in the paper check. They will receive a notice either on their UI Online account or in the mail, alerting them to the fact that it is a conditional payment. So it is not because EDD has made a determination on their eligibility, but rather because they're paying them while they still investigate it.
So they can still spend this money, but if the investigation comes down and it's not theirs, essentially, they'll have to pay it back. Is that correct?
They potentially have to pay it back. There are some situations where claimants can request a waiver of the overpayment so that they do not need to pay back the benefits if they're not found eligible. Many claimants will be found eligible, so they will never be issued any statement about overpayment. So there's a process that EDD has in alerting claimants to the determination and the ability of the claimant to challenge that determination if the claimant disagrees. For some claimants, this will be 1 week of benefits that's impacted. For other claimants, if it's an ongoing eligibility issue, it could be many weeks that are involved in the overpayment.
And when it comes to, you said that as soon as this week that people could be getting these payments, who comes first? Is there any type of determination who's going to get paid first, or is it going to be random?
As far as I know, it's just in batches of claimants, which I don't believe are tied to any particular source of the eligibility issue or weight of length. But the hope by EDD and ourselves in entering into the settlement agreement is that EDD will process those payments as soon as the system allows them to.
And about how many people are waiting for their money?
We don't have a final number from EDD quite yet in terms of how many are impacted, but based on the dashboard numbers that EDD publishes, it's over 100,000 claimants.
And can you clarify this for continued claims, not new claims, correct?
That's right. So initial eligibility, which is when a claimant first files for benefits, those claims still require that EDD make a determination about eligibility before issuing payments. So those claimants are not implicated in this change. The center is still in negotiations on making sure that all regulations and due process protections are provided to those claimants as well, but this agreement and this change do not impact those claimants.
And how have the delayed payments affected people you have spoken with over the past year and a half?
The delays in payments have been one of the most difficult issues we've faced throughout the pandemic, starting from the first wave of filing of claims, where claimants just were not hearing back on applications or submissions of documents to try to get benefits. And so any move on EDD's part to pay more quickly is welcomed on our end.
Is there anything people with continued pending claims needs to do, or are they waiting on EDD?
So it's important for them to keep monitoring their email and online messages for when EDD does reach out to ask them for information that will verify their continued eligibility. Often this is a notice for a phone interview. And so even if claimants have already stopped receiving benefits at the time the phone interview is scheduled, it's important that they keep that interview date and they appear for their phone interview or answer the call so that the eligibility determination can be made and they won't face that overpayment in the future.
And you mentioned that this is a major step in resolving other issues. What are the other issues? What are some things that EDD needs to fix?
Yeah, as you know, the state auditor's reports have pointed out, there's many issues at EDD that could be improved to provide more prompt payment of benefits, more equitable determinations for claimants, and more access by the claimants to providing information and contact to EDD. And those are the issues that we're working on. But this is a major step forward. It represents almost half of the number of claimants that are currently in the backlog stage. And that's why we focused on this one first and decided to reach a resolution on just this issue while still trying to work out details of the other issues that we're alleging against EDD.
How is this going to be any faster to get payments out than before? EDD wasn't getting money to people. Now they're just admitting it. Okay, we'll put the investigation to the back and give you the money now, but why is that going to make it any faster than it was before?
Yeah, so the big difference is once EDD has identified that there's an eligibility issue, before this week, what EDD did is it issued a full stop payment on claimant accounts. So they couldn't receive benefits for any weeks going forward, regardless of whether they had eligibility issues for the future weeks. And that process is what's stopping. So that there's no longer that stop payment when there's an eligibility issue. If EDD cannot make a determination by the end of the week, following the week that they find the eligibility issue, EDD will make those payments while they continue to investigate. The wait time for these phone interviews is more than 10 weeks. So that means they'll receive at least 10 weeks of benefits while they wait for that eligibility interview, whereas currently it's just showing a pending status for all those weeks.
And I know we don't have a true number, but it's at least 100,000 people who are looking for this money. How long do you think it will take for them to get everybody this backlog payments?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know exactly. I mean, we because of the settlement agreement, we are monitoring and receiving updates from EDD on the rollout of the program. And so we are absolutely pushing for them to roll out all portions of it as quickly as possible. One of the complexities with continued eligibility is that there's so many different kinds of issues that could come up on continued eligibility. And we want to make sure that EDD has looked at all of the different types of eligibility issues and paid all those claimants benefits. So part of it is continuing to follow up with EDD and making sure that they've identified everyone who should be included. And if folks believe that they should be included in this and have not received their payments in the next couple of weeks, they're welcome to give us a call and we can look at their case and see if it's something that we should raise with EDD.
But most people won't even have to give a call. It'll just automatically be in their account.
That's right. We've already discussed with EDD the major categories of claims that we know are included in this, and they already have their systems in place, ready to start running it out now. I mean, I think that one of the major reasons we were able to get this big change is because of the change in leadership at EDD. We've been doing EDD advocacy for a long time, and when we raised issues about continued payments or about the delays in eligibility determinations, we were not welcomed into the discussion to try to reach a mutually agreeable resolution, and we were this time. You know, we approached them in 2021 when Director Sines took over, and we really felt that EDD was communicating what steps they were taking to investigate the alleged violations and to reach this agreement. So the lawsuit was filed. The Center for Workers' Rights, our organization, was both a plaintiff and counsel on the lawsuit, as well as our co-counsel, Altshuler Berzon, based in San Francisco. The complaint was a class action lawsuit that alleged constitutional violations of due process protections, as well as violations of Department of Labor regulations for payment of benefits when due. Those were the main categories of violations that were implicated. The complaint was limited to the issues that we discussed today that are being resolved. So violations related to the continued eligibility determinations and payment of benefits while those investigations are going forward. This is based primarily on the Department of Labor's Unemployment Insurance Program letters, the UIPLs, one from 2001-0401, and one from this year, which is 16-21, which established that EDD must pay benefits pending eligibility determinations. Along with the complaint that was filed today were declarations by myself and co-counsel, and attached to co-counsel Michael Rubin's declaration was the settlement agreement that was signed by Director Sines and their counsel to the Attorney General's office, which lays out the programmatic changes that they're making as a result of the settlement agreement. There's also the motion for injunctive relief and settlement approval. So the settlement will need to be approved by the judge in Alameda County Superior Court before it's finalized in the court's mind. But because we reached this agreement by mutual agreement with EDD, they are not waiting to carry out the provisions of the settlement agreement to remedy the violations. So we are acting as if it's been approved already by they're continuing to move forward on implementation of the programs that they agreed to implement, and our continued discussions on additional changes that we hope will occur shortly.
And by filing it, it makes the agreement legally binding. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. So if the court approves the settlement agreement, it provides sort of two things. One is that EDD is confirming that it will abide by that settlement agreement and will be enforceable by the court's order or confirmation of the settlement agreement and by the court's order. And second is it does establish that in terms of a litigation approach, that our organization as the plaintiff who filed the claim is representing the class of claimants who are experiencing this, so that if there is a violation, we're able to bring an action against EDD for enforcement of that agreement.
Do you have any doubts or hesitation that they won't follow through?
No, I think we are always skeptical of the strength of EDD's technology. So it is not any concern is not related to EDD's desire to comply 100% with the settlement agreement. We always fear a collapse of the technology in trying to make changes like this. And that's our only concern. We are, as the Center for Workers' Rights, we are in the belief that claimants should come first, and eligible claimants should not have their benefits delayed as a result of issues with fraud with those claimants who are not eligible. I do not have any fraud concerns with this program because it does not impact initial eligibility, which is where claimants previously had been able to get through problems with the EDD system and get benefits because they were determined to be initially eligible. So that's why I'm not worried about the rollout of this program, because this only impacts claimants who have been found initially eligible for benefits and being able to get benefits ongoing. For EDD's prioritizing fraud claims, even if there's an allegation of fraud for a continued claimant, EDD can still investigate that claim and make a determination before the payment is due. So within those first 2 weeks, if they're concerned that it is a fraudulent claim and that they need to stop payment as soon as they can. So it's built in to the system that if it's a priority issue, they can investigate that and make sure that fraudulent claims are not paid to the detriment of those who are eligible.
And they have to make all these investigations within the next 2 weeks, is that correct?
So the investigations from most of these claims, the investigations have been already started or ongoing. So, some claimants, it's a new eligibility issue. So maybe they went back to work and EDD is determining whether they still qualify for benefits based on how many hours they're working to consider whether they're fully employed or not. or maybe they lost childcare when the summer started, and so they were not eligible for a couple of weeks before camp started. Any of these issues could have led to an eligibility issue over the last, several months. And so EDD has started and can continue those eligibility interviews. And so that is ongoing. So some of those investigations, especially on the fraud issues where the claimants usually receive the request to verify identity, usually they receive that notice pretty promptly after EDD has identified it. And then it's just a matter of EDD reviewing those documents. So many of the claimants that are facing eligibility issues for potential fraudulent claims based on identity have likely already received some sort of notification about that issue, but their payments will begin if EDD hasn't reviewed the documents they've provided.